Welcome, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Welcome, everyone, to the weekly community open hour for the most savoriest. Is that a word? Savoriest? No, that's a terrible word. To the saltiest open source project. Woohoo! Welcome. I am Sage Robbins. I'm the SALT program manager, and today is March 4th, 2021. We're all excited that 2020 is over, right? Am I right? I like it that I get no comments. So okay. Here's our agenda.
These are the good old days. Just remember that.
It's true. It's true. So here's our agenda. This is pretty standard. I've actually added some things in here. So general updates is actually going to be kind of long, but we're going to get into it. So yes, the RC date was delayed. Let me get some things out of my way here so I can see my slides. Let's see. So the RC date was delayed, should be late in the day on Monday. Also, I wanted to say the website, if you see a problem, please submit a ticket to the SALT GitHub repo. Mark Smith actually volunteered to help with some things there. And if anybody else is willing to help there, I will gladly look into how you guys can help and how we can get you access. I would love that. I am not a developer. I have enough experience to be very dangerous. So I could use all the help I can get. But for now, please submit some issues. I have some issues out there, and we're going to be working towards some things. And we do have some core team members that have some skill sets that can work on it as well, although that's not our main focus. Our main focus is really on the SALT project code base and not the website. So I'd love to have some help there if anybody's willing. It'd be great. Okay. The Community Advisory Board. We have not made a lot of progress on this, so we are going to make progress on this. So today I am making this announcement. If you are interested in joining the CAB, please send me an email. I want to know why you want to join, what it is that you want to contribute, and your impression and your ideas of the scope of the group. And please attach either a resume or a LinkedIn profile. We are going to start taking, this is just going to be an application to join the CAB. There will be more coming about exactly what this CAB is going to do, exactly what the scope of the group is, and exactly what their role will be. This is generally supposed to be a voice for the community, a group of people that are very active. Any questions?
What is the anticipated level of effort, like, time commitment for that? Do we know yet?
I'm thinking it will be less than an hour a month. I'm thinking that's going to be kind of the time commitment, although that can be adjusted as we get into the details of exactly what the CAB is and the scope of the CAB. I'm open to some ideas there because I don't want it to take up a lot of people's time, but I do want to have this group and have it available. So maybe it needs to be a quarterly time frame. I'm open to that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, great question. Okay, general updates, the CentOS 7 symlinks. I have an issue. I will link to it. I can't get to it right now because I'm displaying this in this way. Can I do this? There it is. We have, is Bryce on the call? Bryce might not be here today. Totally okay if he's not. Oh, that's fun. I like it when I do that. Maybe I should just link. Here, Sage, do the thing. Or don't. Come on.
That's because it's PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, why do you suck today? There we go. So I have this out there. This is some general things that we're talking about with the sim links. I think we did this in an attempt to make it more granular for people, but now we kind of have a mess. And this isn't working. And so we want to clean this up. But we don't want to do that just sort of haphazardly and not tell people. But right now, this is giving, if you go to this and start downloading things, it's really not helpful. And so we need to really clean this up. So we're going to start doing that probably in May. That will happen. So it's not soon, but I want to start letting people know that this is happening, because I think we actually only support back to, like in this case, 7.7. So there's some things here that we need to clean up. So this is the first announcement of me telling everyone, we're going to clean up here. We're going to make this better. Yay. So just an announcement about that. This is actually left over. A new Saltair drops later today. I think that was actually last week, but please do subscribe to those. Those are great. And I will make sure that in the notes that we have a place for you to subscribe. If you go to saltproject.io, I think that you can get it there. Then next week, we will be holding the CVE release retrospective. I am gathering info, and there is an issue in the SALT repo with the label retro, easy to find. And we will you can put feedback there. You can send it to me. You can put it in Slack, and I'll try to make sure that it's all there. And we'll be going over some of those. I'll try to be getting that into the live retrospective is a place to do things live and to talk about things and to actually have some action items come out of it. And then there will be some an artifact that comes from the live retrospective that has everything in it. And we'll look at a timeline. We'll do sort of a root cause analysis of some things that happened there. And we'll talk about the feedback that's been given. Oh, Mark, sorry, I didn't see this. And Wayne, when we get a QA time, this is needed. Is there a bunch of discussion around TPL and friends in, what is this, Wayne?
It's just something I put in there for later. We don't need to discuss it at the
Oh, okay. That's fine. We can talk about it in a minute. Why the change, though? It's not exactly intended to be human readable. So for, I think we could make a lot of changes here in repo. This one, what is happening here is you're actually downloading. If you go here and pick some of these other RPMs, you're actually downloading a lot more than you need to. And I just don't think that we don't do this in any of the other, like we don't do this with Ubuntu. This doesn't look the same when you go to some of these. And so I want to really make this better. It's not meant to, I don't know that it is meant to be human readable, but maybe it should be. And if there's more feedback around how this should look, I would love to hear from you guys. I don't use this every day. So to me, I kind of go to it, know what it is and how we use it, but I'd love to hear from the community on a better way to do this or a better way to make this readable and usable. Does that answer your question, Mark? We actually did something different with this one. And so I think that we need to do some cleanup, but I'm also open to just making some general changes here and make this better.
Are those symlinks also reflected in Pi 3? Because that's the Pi 2 endpoint of the.
Yeah, they're in both
Okay.
cases.
Yeah, Bryce, do you want to talk
Oh,
about
I
this
see
some
the
more?
second screenshot there. Okay.
Yeah, so so far the tentative plan is on May 19th or anywhere, somewhere around there. We wanted to remove all the symlinks and then also remove all of the repo RPMs on archive.repo.saltstack.com. But the repo RPMs on repo.saltstack.com, we would leave them there, just not make any new ones. that makes sense. So that way people currently using the repo RPMs don't have a surprise, but we're just going to stop providing them going forward.
Right. And Mark, to your point, I wanted to start communicating this now, having it happen in May so that we can get the information out to people, because a lot of these we don't support, and they could be found either in other places. And we want to have it out here so that it's not taking up a lot of space and it's not causing other problems. But we also really want to make sure that people aren't what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of like surprised, that's the point of communicating it now, is that I don't want to, people that are relying on these, I want to make sure that they're aware that we're removing them and trying to clean up here and do some other things. So the main point of talking about it now, and probably doing a blog post and explaining what we did, why we did it, where we're going in the future, and how we're going to do that and when, I think is the key component to the communication piece here.
So I did check, and for the symlinks, I think it was less than 0.5% of people using them.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but still want to communicate, right? I think that's still really important. Let's see. Did I hear that correct? We will remove current RPMs. Oh, removing unsupported as they fall off, I guess.
Well, no, we're removing specifically the RPMs that include the repository configuration and the key files, if I understand correctly, because that's being replaced with .repo config files that are much easier to modify,
That's
such
correct.
as for items going into archive, if I understand correctly, Bryce.
Yeah, so we're removing them all from archive, and then removing the repo RPMs from repo as soon as they drop off and are invalid, basically. So as soon as the 3000 releases go to archive, we'll delete the 3000 repo RPMs. 3003 is going to get released. We're just not going to add 3003 repo RPMs at all. So just going forward, we're just going to let them gradually go away.
Yeah, and the reason one of the reasons it's happening is that moving these RPMs to the archive just means that whenever anyone downloads them, they're instantly broken because they'd be pointing to the wrong repos. But if they're .repo config files, they can be easily modified because of just simple string changes.
Okay, that makes sense. I was not sure that I heard that correctly. So
Another thing is for people using the repo RPMs, my guess is they probably don't GPG verify them or look at them, and a repo file is much easier to look at and inspect than an RPM is. So
Yeah, from a security perspective there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, you guys. All good things, good questions. Now this looks even better. Oh no. PowerPoint. Why are you terrible?
you should
you
just use
just
Vim.
are. Well, we were using this. Okay, where am I? Okay, here we go. So next virtual meetup is March 17th, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Mountain, Brandy Thompson. Brandy, go daddy. He is going to talk about the build pipeline for Tiamat, build and salt binaries, states, etc. Walk through the garden, deploy, set up for teams. This is going to be pretty cool. Please join us. I will make sure that there is a link to that, and you can find it on our calendar. And I believe we have something out on the website as well.
So
I'll make sure that's more available. Go ahead.
daylight savings is the 14th, so that should be MDT probably.
Oh, you're right. See, if I don't have it in slide mode, I can do more things. Okay, release updates. This hasn't changed too much. I added some things we're still aiming for and targeting March 31st release date. We did move the RC date to Monday. Code freeze February 25th, although we're still merging some things in right now that have been identified, but not anything else for aluminum. The open hour on March 18th, I will review the release process and go over some updates after we have the retrospective. I am certain that we'll have some things that are specific to the release, and so we'll go over it then. I will try to make that public prior to, a lot of it should be because it's going to come out of the retrospective, and so there'll be an artifact from that, but I'll also try to narrow that focus in a way so that we can go over just release, not necessarily CVE release, but kind of release process as well. Then here's our milestone image. Package updates. We do have this project board. No, because why would we go to it? There we go. And I made this board to try to make this more visible. There is also a channel in Slack that will get updates from these issues. And just want to make sure that people are aware of this. We have quite a few things that we're looking at here, like the HTTPS only repo and the document installation instructions from a separate domain name. There's a lot of things in here that I think we just want to make people aware of, that this is what we're working on, like apt key is being deprecated, what we're going to be doing going forward. We are looking at doing some metadata in the repo, a lot of different things here. Bryce, I don't know if you want to call anything out.
We do plan on moving the installation instructions to a separate domain name. We're thinking putting them in the same place as the getting, or not the getting started guide, it's the Salt user guide. So anyway,
user guide.
That's going to happen eventually. I don't know if Derek has anything more to say on that.
Yes, one of the tasks I'm also working on is pretty much seeing how I can merge what is going on in Salt user guide as part of the build docs process, so that when the docs get created, it would be a combination of what's going on in Salt user guide and in the docs, because a lot of what's happening in Salt user guide is actually going to be deprecating a lot of like outdated topics in the main Salt docs. But depending on how the timeline looks like for where we want to, when we want to move those directions, I don't know if one's going to happen, if that may happen a little differently, but yeah, that's kind of the plan.
Yeah, I guess we need to figure out that timeline still. That's okay, we will do that. Salt enhancement proposals. I've done a little bit of work on the enhancement proposals to get them. Where are my notes? Ooh, notes. Okay, can I open the link? I have to right click to open a link. Really? That's dumb. Is that really how that works? Open the link.
Can you control shift click? Will that work? Oh, command click. It said.
Here we go. So I am going to start assigning some of these. Some of them I've assigned to myself that I will try to start like this one, create the community advisory board. Me. This is me. This is my mug that says, don't mess with Texas. Yes, I have a mug that says, don't mess with Texas. It's one of my favorites. Right, Cody? Anyway, and this is still in a draft state. This one will probably move forward quite a bit in the next couple of days and weeks. I am also looking at to add the inclusive language, and I'm going to start assigning some of these other ones out so that we can move forward on them. Any questions about these? Anybody want to talk about any of them specifically?
I guess I don't have a specific one, but I think I remember in a conversation previously that even that we need to track which ones have been accepted and not implemented, correct? Because we have SEPs that have been, that are accepted there, but they're kind of like a to-do item.
Yes, and I'm going to look at that process a little bit more carefully. We talked about it we have a weekly team meeting where we do talk about the steps specifically, and then we talk about the process. And I think what we need to do is some better communication here. And so I'm going to look at that and come up with something that is more visible to what's next and where we are in the process. I don't know what that looks like today, but I will be communicating that out. And of course, I'd take some feedback. If anybody has ideas, please let me know.
The improved salt running under user privileges / accounts, that happened before or after Tiamat? Because that makes a lot of changes to how that's implemented.
This one we actually were going to split out into two. So I imagine that Tiamat will happen first, and then it will make some changes with that, I guess. That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Because a good chunk of the changes that need to happen are in packaging.
It's true.
Moving forward with the cab, there's still a lot of unresolved questions in the SEP
Yes.
for that one. So I'm just, are we expecting to, like, there's things like how are people nominated? What are the term lengths? Those type of questions that are kind of haven't been answered yet. Do we expect those to be answered by the time the cab is formed, or we expect kind of the cab to figure that out?
I will answer what I can. Some of it may, because some of them kind of depend on the cab being formed, right? To also kind of go over that. So I will do what I can here, and some of it I may defer to the cab. Because I think, like, how frequently should the board meet? Well, some of that kind of depends on what's going to be the scope.
Yeah,
right?
no, I was thinking more along, the nomination process. What's the term in terms of commitment? Like, and I've sat on a number of boards, and one of the best practices we always find for continuity of the board is staggering terms, but those are generally on elected boards, whereas it looks like, at least initially, this will be appointed. So I was just thinking those kind of governance things where it's not really appropriate necessarily for the cab to decide that for themselves.
Yes, exactly. And so I will have a lot of more updated and answered in the next week. And right now I want to get a general idea of who's interested, because some of that will also drive some of those things of who's actually been on a board and who's can bring some things to the table as well. Because I am doing this based on some other cabs that I've seen in open source, but I want to actually hear from this board in some terms to say, hey, this is what I saw what worked, because that's valuable information too.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and this is a volunteer board, and I guess it would be appointed, not necessarily elected, although I guess people could be elected. I haven't really thought about that in that way. I was just thinking of it as a volunteer board, and then we could talk about the terms and the tenure. And go off of the governance. Yeah. If you have a cab that you sat on and you thought that their governance was well put together and worked really well for them, I'd love to just review it. If you want to send me, a link or even just a name of something that I can find, I'd be happy to review that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't sat on anything open source specifically. I've sat on a number of nonprofit and community organization boards, but not something open source specifically. So I'm sure there's some nuances there that are different. But yeah, I'd be happy to share any thoughts I have with regards to general best practices.
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to hear those. But yeah, I do. I'm going to answer a lot of these questions in the next week and see what I can put together here, because I think we just need to move forward. So I'll be doing that. Other questions? Other subs? Oh, okay. Working groups. So item cloud will resume on its, they took a break for a month, paused for a minute. I know that we talked about this last time. I wasn't here, but I did listen. It's fantastic. And we'll resume that at its regularly scheduled time. So it meets that, is it the first Monday or the second Monday? I believe it's the second Monday of the month. And it's 4 p.m. This will still be MST. It is Mountain. Formulas meets every other Tuesday. Docs is meeting every other Thursday. Mac and Windows are fairly active. We are looking for more volunteers. And the best way to get started with that is to simply join one of the meetings. And so we have those out there on the calendar. If you want more help with that, please get with me or Janae or anybody on the core team. We'll get you involved in one of those. I am still reviewing the security charter, and I'm looking for people that want to join the security working group and when they could meet. Barney did a great job of submitting that, and that's in the community repo, and it looks really good. I was just looking for people to get that started so we can move ahead with it and a time to hold it. The salty Kubernetes, we're going to, after last week's discussion, we will definitely move forward with what that looks like and discovering that, and looking for volunteers there as well that want to be involved in that piece, and then testing and release. So we're going to break that up into two and do one that's specifically around testing and one that's specifically around release, and then testing for a release. And right now those meet, I think it's next Wednesday. And so I need to find a separate time for one or the other. Also looking for volunteers for that. Would love to understand when people want to meet for those. And then the test clinics on Tuesday and Thursdays. Tuesday afternoon, Thursday mornings. And then every other week that we don't have a docs working group, we've been doing docs clinics. I think those are still going. And looking forward to doing more docs jams. So I did not get these in a slide, but I did want to go over today just a few things that we're looking at as we go into planning for our next release cycle. Excuse me. We are looking, we talked about this last time about the salt extensions repo, and it's very early development. I'll make sure that that's in the notes that everybody has that. That is really early development, but looking to really put that into use over the next release cycle. So we definitely need some documentation there. The README is a bit sparse, just a bit. I am looking for another docs jam to be held in this release cycle and a ports to master jam, and see if we can get those finished. We are looking at Vcenter modules and doing some work on those and getting those more robust, I guess I'll say. Working groups, I would love for all of them to have a project charter, and this just gives the outline of each group's, objectives and goals. This would really, I think this really drives a lot of the working groups to have a real purpose. I think Gareth said project, like they actually have something to work on, and that's the point of the charter. It's one page, it's a couple of questions. It should not take anybody very long to get through those. And in fact, I'd love to do those in the working groups themselves. And I'll be attending those to get those done. But that gives them a focus. Of course, the community advisory board is going to happen. And then there's also SEPs. I want to give SEPs a communication plan and workflow in that communication plan, how that works, and then what comes next. Heist is getting some focus. There will be more about the details that come from planning and the open hours throughout March. Documentation is going to get more of a focus, release process and the CD process. Of course, PyTest documentation and testing documentation in general. We're also looking at the platform support page and the OS support page, getting those updates, explaining them better and clearer and making those more visible. Of course, archiving of packages schedule and the changes to symlinks and evangelizing those changes throughout before they happen. We would really like to get Tiamat into production and get that being used a lot more, and that's going to happen. And then also looking at the community doing some triage in the SALT repo. We have the ability to give triage permission now, and I believe that we have the process in a place where we can start testing the process where it can be opened up to the community. I'm going to be reaching out to some people to see if they can help me with that before we make that more widespread. But if you're interested in helping us with triage, I would love to hear from you. And then just to put a note in, I am drafting a SEP right now that we're going to put back the 0.0 in major releases. And so you'll see that SEP come out in probably the next 2 weeks or maybe 3. I've started it, but I've had a few other things on my plate recently. So that one hasn't.
We really, really need help with triage. So please help us.
Yes, we do. We
Yeah,
definitely do.
I can speak from personal experience that helping triage is one of those things that will help you get much more familiar with SALT and a lot better at just kind of knowing where the different corners are, being like, oh, this is over here. Oh, that's over there. And it's not a horribly complicated thing to do most of the time. But it is time consuming. And so the more people that we have, the lighter that workload will be. And one of the, I guess, main reasons that we really want and need help is because, you know, we're a limited team, right? And the issues are legion. About 1,700, I think, is the last time I noticed in GitHub.
2K.
Oh, sweet. So yeah, and a lot of the times, you know, these issues will come in and they will be maybe not complete, I would say. So it's just like, hey, I've got some problem. Clearly there's an issue here, but maybe whoever opens that issue doesn't really know how to explain exactly what's happening. And sometimes they can just, you know, really be like, oh yeah, this is the problem, and it's easy to reproduce. You know, but oftentimes if you can go in and spend 30 minutes kind of hacking around on it and figure out, oh, this is exactly what's the problem, and then document that on the issue, then it becomes much easier for somebody to come in and pick up the issue and go and solve it. Because most of the time what happens currently is that you'll go to pick up an issue and you're like, okay, well, there's a problem, but that's about the extent of what I know here. And then so you'll spend like 2 or 3 hours trying to figure out, okay, what exactly is this problem? What's going on here? Oh, this is the cause of that problem. And then you can start working on it. Whereas if we have like a full MCVE on the issue, then it becomes much easier and much faster for somebody to pick up the issue and solve it, and also know that they have solved the issue versus, you know, just kind of scratching the surface of it. So
yeah, so MCV, a minimum complete viable example. So
yeah.
that gives us a really good, and we ask for, you know, tell us exactly your steps. If you can sanitize, you know, your state file and give it to us, that'd be great. Or like the reactor or whatever it is that you're having problems with, so that if we have more details there, and then we can jump on it faster, that helps us. And so we are looking for people to just help us verify, or we do get just questions come in as issues, and that's fine. We'd like to see those in Slack or IRC or the mailing lists, the Google groups and SALT users. But sometimes it has to do with a problem that they're seeing. And so they're just not sure, am I setting this up right? And so that's fine, it happens. And so we're just looking for people to help us sift through some of that. We need to get through that backlog of issues and get them triaged so that we know what the priority is on those and what the severity is, so that we can get them fixed faster. And this is a community run project. And to tell you the truth, we cannot do this project without the community. We need you guys. Absolutely. So just looking for more help where people can provide it.
So Sage, on that, do you have sort of existing documentation about how to set priorities and how to, if someone, basically, if you want to start triaging stuff, you know,
Yes,
do you have any process that people can use for doing that?
I do. And I'm going to expose that. I'm not sure how I'm going to expose that though. Derek and I will do something to expose that documentation very soon, because I have it in it's in a Confluence page. So it's internal documentation only. And I can easily turn that into like an RST or something else and make that more visible. And we'll do that in the next day or two. So yes, and that process I think has come a long way. But I am looking for people to help me with where it still has holes, because I'm certain it does.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to have something like a triage jam to clear out a good portion of these, where you get a bunch of people who maybe haven't necessarily worked a ton with salt, but you want to get some more familiarity with reproducing problems, that type of thing?
That's a great idea.
I was going to say, I actually love that idea, especially because, you know, we could have a couple of people who are more experienced with doing triage and like reproducing issues and stuff, and just kind of sharing your screen and saying, this is the process I use when I when I triage an issue. This is how I figure out, oh, this goes here and this goes there. Because and one of the things I've noticed is a lot of times I do things like I have things mentally, but I haven't spoken them out loud. And so when I think about, oh, this is actually the process, then it kind of exposes either some holes or, oh yeah, that's actually a really good way to think about this and go about it. So yeah, but I love that idea, Gary.
Yeah, me too. I will see if I can get something scheduled. So we actually do that Tuesday triage meeting because Tyler, with our alliteration, used to do Tyler's Tuesday triage streaming. I guess streaming doesn't fit, but it was Twitch, so it did all fit. He's not here to tell me what it was. Twitch Tyler Tuesday triage or something. and he got really great at triage and kind of getting through it. And I tried to keep that going, but it didn't really work out. So I think doing a jam is a great way to go. And we'd probably only need to do it for maybe an hour or two. And I'll look at getting that scheduled. I think that we get more participation in the morning, although that's harder for me to do on certain days, but I think I can make it work somewhere, and I'll look for that. If anybody has suggestions on a day or a time of day, I'm happy to look at that. We're just at the point at the meeting where I take general Q&A. Excuse me. So does anybody have questions, comments?
Okay, now it's my turn.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, that bit that I posted at the beginning of the chat. So PR 56918. It's a master port. And the reason I bring this up is because I remembered that we had a lot of discussion around the SLS/TPL context, which was PR 58238. So if you scroll down in this one, there's okay, maybe it's not this one.
Not this one. Sorry, do I have the wrong one?
This one, yeah. So I think this one of these comments from Imran link to to another one that has a whole bunch of discussion.
Is it the second one that you put in the chat? This one, the cleanup calculation?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
So this one is 29 bits of conversation.
There we go.
So basically, this was a thing that happened a while ago, I guess August of last year. And there was some cleanup because a lot of this behavior was confusing.
I remember this
and
one.
in some cases broken.
Right.
So this happened and was changed, but apparently there was another sort of companion change in this process, which is the other PR that I posted.
This one.
Yes. So this one, if you go to the 51814.
This one.
Yeah, that one. So this adds a TPL root, or I guess template root, and kind of explains why that's a useful thing to have. So it's just double checking that this is something that we do actually want, based on the the discussion that we had around the other stuff, and I guess some things were kind of broken and duplicated, and there were some many questions around kind of why we have some of those other bits. So I wasn't sure if this duplicated anything or if this actually clarifies and makes some of those other problems that we had kind of go away because you can use this piece instead. I have honestly never used any of these variables in a context, so I'm not sure how useful they are. But that's why I brought it up to an open hour, because I figured we do have people either on the call or in the community in general who've used it and have some type of insight.
Yeah. And where Imran has done some work here, maybe it's appropriate to talk about this in the next formulas group. Maybe they have more insight as well. Maybe not. Just want to make sure that I think sometimes we tend to talk about things here in the open hour, and I'd like to get those conversations in other places, either Slack or in some of the working groups or on the website as blog posts, and it kind of depends on what it is. So this one, we made some changes here, and I think that we tried really hard to make sure that this was communicated well, and then after changes were made, there was some upheaval. So we're just looking to make that communication piece more visible. So starting it here, if anybody has ideas of where else we can communicate, please let us know. If anybody has other ideas or concerns about this, please speak up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually have a sort of a very unrelated but sort of related in the context of what's going on with this is I have an issue that I kind of have now and then went and revisited that I kind of keep forgetting about, that it involves a ridiculous amount of research and a lot of work. I'm probably gonna have to split it out into like a ton of issues. It's issue 58112. I'm gonna put that in the chat. For anyone who wants to help whittle away, we have a ton of undocumented config options for Minion and Master. We have some options that are documented nowhere. They're only in the init file, so they happen to be looking for a config option, but there's nothing said about them. And then there are a lot of other ones that can exist in Minion configs and are read, but they're not documented, and vice versa with Master too. It was a massive audit. And there was an old issue originally opened in 2016 saying, hey, we have over 100 config options that aren't, documented. And so this was a revisiting to that. And I haven't
gone down.
Yeah, keep scrolling. Yeah. Well, yeah,
I'm sure it hasn't.
So since the 2016 one had been opened, the number had definitely got down, but there had been new ones since then added that also then were not documented. And so the goal would be, if we could get this all documented, then we could have automation in place that would say, hey, if something new is somehow added, then then CI should be saying this isn't even documented or included in any of the config files. So, but this is one where I have to, every single one of them, heavily research, what does this even do? I don't know what this does. And it's like a lot of troubleshooting, reaching out to people, then maybe submitting a PR and hoping I maybe got it, you know, as right as I can. But this is one of those things where it's also just a lot of options that we apparently support, but I don't know what a lot of them do.
Yeah, sounds like we need a an options documentation jam, huh?
Yeah, there could be just a jam just on that, where I could probably run a script to make a ton of issues, you know, get us over the 2000 mark, and then
to the moon.
Because we definitely need more issues. That, I mean,
well,
bigger is better.
The good thing is that a good percentage of these are actually documented, like sometimes for the Minion config, not for master, where it can be simply duplicated over, vice versa.
Right.
And also that they might not even be in the Minion or master config files. And so then they just need to be duplicated there, or they're not in the RST
Right.
files. It's just like, it's pretty messy.
I think we know what our goal or our objective is going to be for the next doc jam. Here it is. We probably need to pick a piece of this. Actually, this is so big, but I think this is great. In fact, I'm going to copy this so that I get it in the notes.
This one would definitely be much harder to do a docs jam on, because it would say, hey, I want you to now dive into the Python code and try to see where in the SALT project is even calling these options, and then try to derive from there maybe what this means it's doing. Those ones will be the hardest, but if I can make issues that are, hey, this exists and just needs to be in the Minion config file, and
Right,
or
that's
this
what I'm
exists and just
thinking.
needs to be in the RST, then it's like, oh cool, people could just grab it, do the minor
Yep.
modification, and be done.
In fact, I think, Derek, we should probably make this ticket an epic, and then we can spin off some of those smaller tickets that are like that issues and make them that way, and probably even put like docs jam on them.
Yeah,
Just to kind of get us started. I can help with that.
Cool.
Derek,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'd be happy to try a few of those. I can look at Python and see what it does. So if that'd be
Okay, yeah.
useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing I'll have to do is probably I'll probably have to make a script that can help with the generation of the issues, just because
Sure.
otherwise we'd be spending days making every single issue based on what do we think's happening here. I have a bunch of my commands, at least the shell commands in there, that I did for the auditing. And so I bet maybe there could be some, I don't know, extension to that to try, but there's just, I would hate for anyone, especially me, I'm not going to manually be making these issues. Unless you want to give me a week off or something to do. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah, this is a lot of work. And maybe what we even start with is just that. We could start with a docs jam, or maybe we do that in a docs clinic to figure out what that script could be, or the first, iteration of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. Awesome.
So on an unrelated issue,
Sure.
Is there any documentation about how to rerun CI tests on a PR, or can anyone do that, or is that only people with development privileges to do it? Just because I've got a PR that's got some issues with some tests, so there's some, I think, I've got issues open for some broken tests. but is it? I've seen other people, but I think only SaltStack folk run, rerun full all. Are the ways of doing that documented? Are those available to anyone, or is that is that just if you have the relevant privileges, you can rerun CI tests?
I think that was documented, but I'm not sure where.
Okay.
I've not ever found it either, because you can do it from the syntax, right? If you do the comment in the PR.
Right.
But
So
the comments is only for salt people.
Okay.
It's not for anyone and everyone, unless that's changed recently. Bryce would probably know better than any of us.
So the code for that behavior is all in GitHub under, it's called PR commands. So if you want to see how the code works, that's open source.
yeah, I think it's actually anyone can do it.
Okay.
The other option is you can just wait an hour for master to change and then just merge in the changes again, and it will rerun the test.
Yeah. So I've done that, but then that means rerunning all the tests, which takes a considerable amount of time.
It does.
So it'd be good if
Essentially, you should be
possible
able to
to
do like rerun CentOS, rerun,
Cool.
Debian, rerun Mac, stuff like that, and it should work.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Bryce, where
And I
is that?
think-
It's
Yeah.
under GitHub / I think it's PR commands or something similar to that. There might be a dash, I don't remember, but PR commands in some
Bryce, I
form.
don't recall there being anything in there preventing.
I believe it checks that the person who commented has right access to Salt. Don't remember exactly, but I thought that was a thing.
Okay, I would have to refresh my memory.
I was going to say, I know that some people have had stuff work, but yeah, it's it's one of those things where it happens either infrequently enough or in those weird corners that it ends out just not sticking in my head.
Oh yeah, I see the repo. Yeah.
Is it its own repo or is it in Salt?
It's its own repo. I can link it in the.
Oh.
Yeah, it's under SaltStack / PR - commands.
Oh. I'm looking for it in Salt. You can see I'm lost. That's not news. Oh, look at this.
Most of the important behavior is in the PR commands.py file. Or the important stuff.
Gotcha. Well, I would say that this probably needs a better README.
True.
And I really hope it has a license file. Does it?
No.
Well, this is nice. Okay.
Yeah, we should
Thank you for
implement
bringing this
actually.
up.
We should implement some simplified auditing that hits our boards. That then goes what doesn't have a license file.
Yeah, we do. We need to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But this is helpful. Of course, always as I come out of this meeting, I feel like I have a lot of to-dos. That's okay. Yeah, job security. I will be here working away. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Got just a few minutes left. If not, we can adjourn just a bit early. But Barney, thank you for that question. I actually, I learned something new today.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you for joining the Community Open Hour, our savory weekly meeting. Thank you for being here and thank you for your contributions. Everybody have a happy Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.